You are listening to Nerd Best Friends, a podcast that covers the nerdy conversations you're already having, or wish you could. It's the nerdiest thing you'll do this week.
This is Annalise.
This is Rob, and we are your Nerd Best Friends.
It is time for our Nerd Book Club, and Rob has been looking forward to this for a very, very long time.
All right, nerds, this is your official call to action. Grab your devices, hit that subscribe button, give us a rating, and share this episode with your fellow geeks. Let's grow this nerd community together. Every click helps us reach more of you out there. What are you waiting for? Join the movement.
It's the book club, Rob. It is the end of October. We're heading into the holiday season. How is it going?
Oh, I think it's going really well. You know, it's fall in Southern California. It's perfect weather. It's clear. It's a little bit breezy. The temperatures are low. There's holidays and days off coming up. Like it's a perfect time of year.
In a recent episode, you talked about it being too foggy for mini painting. So are you getting some good priming days in?
No, because now it's too windy for mini painting. So of those 40 minis I painted couple weeks ago when we last recorded, I still have like a good 15, 16 left. So I'm okay for a little while.
That's going to be a couple weeks.
Yeah.
What listeners don't know, I'm going to say this. We have a little group chat for mini painting with all our friends that also mini paint. I don't know why I'm still in it. I haven't painted since the summer, but I digress. Rob sends pictures of whatever he painted that week every week, and it's pretty phenomenal. Rob's become a pretty prolific painter in my opinion, and I keep joking that he needs to do it as a side hustle and make money off of it because he's gotten really good at it. However, this week's picture had 6, 8 somewhere minis.
It was like five big dudes. Yeah.
And so at this rate, you're gonna have like 3 weeks before you have no more primed minis.
Yes, and there was a day where it was a little not very windy, so I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm gonna just go spray something, and guess what? I'm out of black primer.
Oh.
I go through so much black spray primer, Annalise. I think I am personally responsible for the hole in the ozone layer.
Well, that and they have a do not sell more than one Kate to this man poster over at Metro Comics.
They do. It's like a wanted poster. One can
you're gonna have to take a quest south over to the Warhammer store and probably buy 5 or 6 at once.
That's what I did last time. And if you remember, I came back with another giant box of 40 minis.
Oh yeah, good point. It's like Costco. You can't go in and not come out with hundreds of dollars worth of stuff.
Because primer, that doesn't count as taking a trip to the Games Workshop store if you just come back with primer.
You gotta get nothing. Games.
You gotta get something. One can Cooper. That's what they call me at the hobby store.
If they don't have that sign, I'm making it, and one day you're going to show up. It's just going to be sitting there behind the register. It's going to be amazing.
Honestly, I don't think those guys know anything about who I am or anything. I think I'm just completely anonymous. I go there like once a month for the last 20 years, and I guarantee nobody there will recognize me or know my name.
What about what's his face? That guy who's managing it?
Jim.
Yeah.
Jim knows Andrew.
That's how you got the sneak around. I got it.
That's right.
All righty. Well, let's get to some nerd mail.
Nerd mail. I have some. I got a doozy.
Oh my goodness.
From a listener regarding the Pop Culture's Cars episode. Hey there, nerds. I was listening through some of your newer episodes while working on a chemistry project, specifically your top 5 Pop Culture Cars episode, which I actually really liked.
That's
I actually liked
favorite
it.
Teen nerd.
Uh-huh. Specifically, the section where Rob talked about the ideas of groups and teams in storytelling and how they all have their different roles and skill sets. You asked for clarification on what that trope is called, so I figured I'd write in. The name of that trope that I know it comes from TV Tropes, which identifies it as the 5-man band. 5-man band consists of a leader, a lancer, a heart, and a smart guy, and a big guy. You got your leader who makes the plan, your lancer who exists as a foil to the leader, your heart, which helps with the emotional talking problems, your smart guy for nerd stuff, and your big guy for jock stuff. An example that comes to mind is the Ninja Turtle. Leonardo leads, Raphael challenges the leader, Michelangelo is the face, and Donatello does machines. And
okay, but interruption. He got that right from the theme song.
Well, the does machines part, of course, because they rhyme. But that's like, it's
Direct
interesting
from
to
the
think,
theme
though.
song.
Like, it doesn't say in the theme song, Raphael will challenge the leader and bring drama.
That's too many words for the theme song. They say it in a more succinct way.
This setup also works in a trio situation, dropping the smart guy and the big guy. Callum makes plans, Ryla backtalks, and Ezrin is the diplomat. That's a reference for nerds. You can also get interesting group dynamics by specifically omitting one of these roles. Luke, Han, Leia, and Chewie are notably missing a smart guy to no one's surprise. I think making these connections is super fun, and maybe it makes fun talk nerdy to me. Ooh, that is a good idea. Your favorite five-man bands.
To our conversation about it's making me think of our conversation about the Golden Girls as a D&D party, right?
Yes.
Having those archetypes is a little bit better or easier way to fit them in than with the individual D&D types, to be able to play them in there. And maybe we can do that in a future episode for sure.
I like that. They're my favorite five-man bands.
Hey, guess what? I have a nerd mail as well. I do, because we make friends on Threads. We have Dave and Liam from the Watch It If You Can podcast. Their whole podcast is about watching stuff and talking about it. And we had tagged them in our Nerd Watching 2010s episode and asked for their input. They listened to it, gave us some great comments, and really loved the episode. And because they are British, they gave us some British nerd watching from the 2010s. So I'm going to list out what they mentioned.
I'm
so
getting my
on the
notepad
British
ready.
side, Peaky Blinders,
Oh, sure.
Happy Valley, Sherlock, Luther.
Wait, hang on. Go slower. We got to think about this. The first one was Peaky Blinders. That's the Irish one. Tommy, we got to get these guns. It's all about Tommy. He's got to get the guns. I know Maria watched that one. And every time I overheard it, it was like, Tommy, we got to get these guns.
And Happy Valley.
Happy Valley, I don't know. You know that one now.
No. Sherlock,
of course. Watched that like 3 times through. In fact, we just watched it with Andrew as part of like our family nerd watching of like, hey, what cool nerd shows should we watch? And we watched all of Sherlock. I even subscribed to, we did the end around thing.
Email free.
Right, where I subscribed for the 7-day BritBox trial, and we watched a bunch, and then Maria signed up for the 7-day BritBox trial, and we watched a bunch, and then Andrew signed up for the 7-day BritBox trial, and we watched the rest.
I loved Sherlock. I actually had it on the list and took it off because I didn't remember enough of it to.
It's funny because I had just watched it.
And then Luther, which is a great call. Luther was a good show. And then another one I've never heard of.
Luther's a horror one? Is Luther like yeah.
And then Fleabag. Never heard of Fleabag.
Well, I don't know Fleabag.
And then for movies, Philomena.
Oh, Philomena. Yes, that's a movie.
Philomena, yeah.
I have heard of it. I can't remember if I saw it. I don't think so.
And we have Paddington 2. Paddington 1 came out before the 2010s.
Because Paddington 1 was garbage, but the sequel really slapped.
Sequels never slap. Attack the Block, not
Don't
familiar.
know that one. I'm hoping
Ex
it's a
Machina?
New Kids on the Block retrospective documentary, though.
Could be. Actually, that one's called Dirty Pop, and it's on Netflix. Ex Machina.
Ex Machina. Isn't that the?
You're right. It's Ex Machina. You're right.
Isn't that the sequel? No, that's called Furiosa. Never mind. I don't know what I'm talking about.
Okay.
And what was the last one?
The World's End.
The World's End.
Great suggestions.
Okay, I'm very interested in World's End. I'm very interested in Ex Machina. And then what was the show? Oh, Luther. Did you watch Luther?
I did not watch Luther, but it was on in my household when I was living in Ohio.
I think I want to watch that one too. Is that like a gothic horror? Like Luther is the devil, but he's in the modern times and he like wears a coat and talks all smart and fancy?
I believe so.
Okay,
if we're thinking about the same show, yes. And it's not Lex Luthor.
That's too bad. If it was a Lex Luthor show, I would have watched it already.
It is a British psychological crime thriller television series. So yes, you were right.
No, but it doesn't have to do with like magic and the devil. I feel like it would say right away, like, this is a gothic horror about the devil and there's demons and
No, it is
CGI.
not. It is about him trying to prove his innocence. It's like the one-armed man sets out to
I didn't kill my wife.
I
don't care.
Give me back my son.
That's totally different.
Yes, it is. But that's what I think about when I think of these types of movies. Give me back my arm. That's a long joke from 30 years ago from college. It's a real quick side note. So because I went to USC, there's obviously a lot of ties in the industry. And one of those ties are once a year, the marching band would get to go to Paramount Studios and watch a film that wasn't released yet. But of course, we're a bunch of dorks and band geeks. So the whole time we're just like railing on these movies. And one of them was Liam Neeson, I think.
No, that one
One
is
of the "Give me back my
Ransom.
son."
That's
Yeah.
Ransom with the
Mel
Jesus
Gibson.
guy. Mel
So,
Gibson.
so this one came out after Mel Gibson, and during this other movie that we saw with Liam Neeson, we were yelling out "Give me back my son" every time he had some like dramatic.
Oh,
thing,
so like
even though,
the Taken commercial came out and he was
yes,
like, I have a particular set of skills. And you're like,
give me back my son. Yes,
dude, that was so good.
because going to see the movie on the Paramount Studios with the USC band was like a giant version of Mystery Science Theater 3000. People were just ragging on the movie the whole time. You don't actually watch it.
I also remember around that same time, there was a Star Trek movie that came out, and it was like a Star Trek The Next Generation movie, and it was out, and we actually went and watched it on the cruise ship your freshman year of college, and it was the same thing, because it had that famous line where Patrick Stewart was like, the line must be drawn here, and we all yelled, give me back my son!
My son! Yes. It's just applicable to every movie from the 1990s.
Oh my
Every
God.
action movie.
Give me back my arm really got me.
Got him. I remember yelling that out in that movie theater. Give me back my arm.
Well, because that's from
The Fugitive.
The Fugitive.
Yep. Harrison Ford.
Which was an earlier, I have no idea. I just know that movie's so funny. I didn't kill my wife. I don't care.
Thank you, nerds. Great nerd mail, great tangents. Now to our new segment, Talk Nerdy to Me. We're not going to play a game this time, Rob. Instead, we have some guests on this episode that we're going to bring up very soon.
Heck yeah.
So in light of that, in that spirit, who would your dream podcast interview be and why?
Oh, well, my dream podcast interview would, of course, be Dr. Intern Joan, who is going to be on the show next, because if I say anything else, it would be really rude.
It's not a dream. That's reality.
My answer to this question for reals is the same answer I always give when this comes up. Like, if you could have lunch with someone living or dead, who would it be? If you could have a meeting with your favorite celebrity, blah, 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 blah. If heaven exists and you meet somebody, who do you want to welcome you to the pearly gate? Whatever it is, my answer is always the same. And that answer is Jim Henson. Jim Henson, I think, is genius. I think he changed the world. I think he changed the world for children, for cinema, for creativity, and the way we look at things, practical effects in all kinds of different mediums. This man was a revolutionary in all forms of entertainment and just built something that has carried on this legacy that is still wonderful, that still brings joy and smile to my face and to my heart. I love Jim Henson and Muppets and practical effects and all of these things. Like, I feel Sesame Street and the Muppet movies and the Muppet Show were foundational for how I grew up into the person I am. So 100%, the answer is always the same. It is Jim Henson.
What a lovely answer. But what if, let me ask you secondary to this. What if the person has to be alive? Someone who's alive right now? Not the mythical dead or alive, who would you talk to? But someone right now, who would you
Come
want?
back to me.
Okay. Mine is I'm on a one-track mind. This is the year of Stephen King for me. I know I've been a fan of his since I was like 12 years old, but never before have I, in one span of time, lumped in so much of his work in my day-to-day. So I think it would be really cool to talk to him, because here's someone who these phases, and we talked about it in the Stephen King episode, these like phases of his life. We have the early years where he wrote really scary stuff. We have those years where he was so on drugs and alcohol that he hardly remembers writing some of the things that he wrote. Then we have this kind of middle year where this middle era where he's writing stuff that's more sci-fi than horror and trying different genres. And then he gets hit by the car and almost dies. And since then, everything is much more life retrospective and not necessarily, it's scary because humans are scary and people and human nature is scary. And he dives into a lot of that since his car accident or since he was hit by the car in the early 2000s. And it's really interesting to see how he continues to build amazing characters that make you care about them. I would really love to hear from him about those phases now that he's looking back and having written all these dozens and dozens and dozens of books. I don't know. I would probably come up with some really cool questions to ask him as a retrospective of his career.
So coming back to me, somebody who's
Yes.
alive, and I'm sure there's probably a better, smarter answer of like, oh, wouldn't you talk to the dude who's working on a cure for cancer? Like something important like that, but that's not my answer. My answer is Dave Filoni. Dave Filoni is absolutely saving the Star Wars universe. Everything that's cool about Star Wars and is kind of like fixing it and bringing us back to making it cool. Things that I love about it, like The Mandalorian and like Star Wars Rebels and like the overall direction of all of the intermingling, like back end characters and storylines and all that kind of stuff is his brainchild and his influences. He's steering that ship now. And I think that it would be a great interview. It would be an awesome conversation to be like, let's talk about this. Every interview I've seen with him, he just oozes love of Star Wars and the lore and creativity, and not in a sense of when that dude makes decisions, he's making Star Wars decisions to make Star Wars as awesome as it can be. It has nothing to do with the marketing and the stunt casting and the timing and the this and that. It's all just like, we're going to tell the coolest Star Wars stories, even like little details. Like you'll watch clips of Obi-Wan Kenobi in Star Wars Rebels, and he's like, see here, he's holding the lightsaber Ewan McKellen did, but then in here, he's holding the lightsaber like he did in the Clone Wars when he was younger, and that's why he fought. And super nerds out about Star Wars, and I would love to just sit in a room and listen to this dude talk about how much he loves Star Wars and where it's going and all the things that he loves and that big picture direction that he has.
Makes you wonder how cool it'd be to play D&D with him, right? If he's that detail oriented, the character he would develop and just knock it out of the park. Send in your deep thoughts, nerd questions, or talk nerdy to me subjects that you'd like us to cover by sliding into our DMs, or send those topics into podcast@nerdbestfriends.com. On to our topic, the Nerd Book Club.
First, the thing that I've been waiting for. Here's what the real debut is. You guys. I don't even know where to start. I go back. Sometimes it's very clear that we live in a simulation, because in the first episode, I said, wouldn't it be cool if the show had an intern and her name would be Joan? And Annalise is like, I have a friend named Joan. She could be the intern to the show. And it just manifested itself in the universe. And I was like, ha ha ha, that's not true. And then we made jokes about how intern Joan was Annalise's imaginary friend and there was no actual person. And then there would be emails and there would be this other email on it. And I'm like, oh gosh, is my friend okay? Maybe she's actually schizophrenic because now she's emailing this imaginary friend person that doesn't exist. And then lo and behold, I met an actual person, Dr. Intern Joan. And then I started singing the praises. You guys, this is a real thing now. Intern Joan exists. It's a person. Annalise is okay. And now we get to introduce Dr. Intern Joan to the listening audience. Welcome to the show, Joan.
Thank you. I am real.
Real and wait, what's this?
Look,
What's the Seinfeld quote? They're real and
I
they're
didn't watch Seinfeld.
fabulous. What? It's about Terry Hatcher and her boobs. Oh, wow.
Terry Hatcher wasn't on Seinfeld unless she was a guest star.
Dude, Terry Hatcher was on. It's a very famous Seinfeld thing about her breasts, and it's an iconic.
Then she must have been a guest star. I never watched Seinfeld,
Nope.
but I know she's
All
not
right.
a reoccurring character on it. Good
Only
times.
90s kids.
We could take time to talk about the real story, how this all happened, but Joan's here. Let's go.
Joan, you could tell your own story.
Oh, I am here. I am indeed Dr. Intern Joan. Doctor because I'm a psychologist in my day job. Intern because I've never podcasted or done social media or been involved with such a thing, but love learning new things. That is one of my nerd cred categories, is I love to learn new things and master them. So comes along with being a Gemini and ADHD. So here I am learning the things and doing the things.
For what it's worth, the three people on this podcast right now, in the origins of Nerd Best Friends, we were going to be a Buffy podcast and talk about Buffy the Vampire Slayer. One of the very, very, very early ideas we had was to have three different voices, one being Dr. Joan, the psychologist, to talk about like the psychology. Oh yeah, we never told you this because we never went forward with it, but here's some psychology frame on the episode we're talking about. Rob, who like hates Buffy and likes Angel better, but watched it all after it was all done. And then me, well, Joan as well, we watched it when it was live. We had these three counterpoints that was really interesting. And then we did Nerd Best Friends friends instead, which is great and awesome and lovely. But now here we are full circle, actually on a show to talk about stuff.
If you have noticed an increase in the quality and creativity of our social media accounts, of our website, of our show notes, of all of those details, and it has been a tremendous improvement, that is all thanks to Dr. Joan.
Big time.
You're welcome.
Over the course of the last few weeks, listeners, we asked you to read a comic book with us. It is Wonder Woman Historia,
Wonder Woman, Historia, the Amazons, an origin. Look at that beautiful hardback book that Joan is holding up. Awesome.
Greekness.
It is definitely Greeky.
So let's get into it.
Wonder Woman Historia is a book from 2023. It was a mini-series that has now been collected into its full story, of course, by DC Comics, by Kelly Sue DeConnick, which is an established comic book writer and artist for both Marvel, DC, and independent things. She's got great bona fides. But for me, oh boy, this is an opus. This is a capstone project. Even though it is under the title of Wonder Woman, and it's definitely a telling of that mythos, Wonder Woman's not really in it at all. This is a book about the goddesses of Olympus, the goddesses of Olympus, Hecate, Athena, Demeter, Hestia, Artemis, Aphrodite, and how they created this powerful race of females that embodies their own divine strengths and powers, and the cause of them doing so in defiance of the patriarchy of Zeus and the Olympic gods. It is one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen, and an incredibly cool, not just an origin story like, here's Wonder Woman, she was made out of clay. This goes like back to the origin of the Amazons in the DC universe itself. What am I missing, Intern Joan? What is this book about?
No, that was beautiful. I definitely made notes and you covered them all.
Perfect.
I have a question before we get into the book itself. What led you to choose this book, find this book, read this book?
I found this book because it was It was an Emmy Award winner for 2023. And so when I opened up my Hoopla app, it was like, hey, the Emmys just happened. Here are the books that won big awards. And so I had mentioned another one that I had read, which was the Innismouth H.P. Lovecraft adaptation that was done by a Japanese artist and writer. And that would absolutely blew my mind. It became one of my top 5 comic books of all time. Another recent one that was an Emmy Award winner was the series Something is Killing the Children, which I tried to read, but I was too emotionally distraught and I had to stop.
Yeah, it's not your jam.
It was rough. Similar tangent. I had the similar situation with Lock and Key, which is just this amazing book that everybody loves and thinks is fantastic. I got into the first thing where there's like this home invasion murder of the father of the thing, and I'm like, I can't read this, and never went through. It was the same thing. Like Something's Killing the Children is supposedly like a really cool story about like a monster hunter lady and all this kind of stuff. I got through like the first episode and there were literal like mutilated dead bodies of children, and I'm like, nope, that's not for me.
It's great.
But anyway, that's how I found this book. It was a big award winner in 2023 recently, and it was like, hey, this is something cool. And I'm like, oh, is this tangentially about Wonder Woman? Downloaded it, opened it up. There's this first beautiful shot of, is it Hera in her she's like made of birds and peacock feathers and all this stuff. And I'm like, what is this book? And yeah.
Yeah, and it won 2 awards. The one that I keep remembering is Best Penciling, and I don't remember what the other one is. It might be story writing or something. Yeah, I mean, it's a gorgeous book. I mean, the art in the comic book is gorgeous. Well, we kind of went over the synopsis and a little bit of what the book is about. While it has the title of Wonder Woman, it's actually not about Wonder Woman. It's about everything that existed before Diana could be created. Since we're talking about it winning an award for writing, let's talk about the writing in this comic book.
There's a lot of cool stuff in the writing. You guys might be able to help me out with some of the vocabulary to talk about it. But when I'm reading it, I feel like there is a weight to it because we're looking at gods and we're looking at immortals, and something about the way that they speak in the dialogue comes across as reverent, but it's not like old-timey English. It's not Shakespeare. It's not thous and these and stuff like you might see in like a cheap Thor story, right? It's normal writing, but there's a poetry to it somehow that gives it this weight that you believe like, oh, this is how gods would speak to each other and disagree and those kinds of things. Does that jive with you guys?
That's fair for me. I would say if mythology was presented to me this way growing up, I might have been into it more. It was just inaccessible due to the language back then. And this is definitely more accessible.
And is that because, I mean, it's because of the medium, right? Because we're seeing the pictures and we have that frame of who they are, right? Because it's like that perfect marriage of art and words that comic books can give us. But I know what you mean about like the stories. When I read stories about Greek mythology, they read like a Wikipedia page, right? And if not, if they're told in some other anthology, it's usually because it's from somebody in like the 60s or 70s trying to sound like an important writer, right? Like I get that kind of vibe. This doesn't have that. And I'm not exactly sure why.
I will say that the advantage that comic books always have over a traditional book, the advantage it has is that when there is emotion embedded into the text, a comic book can give you that high point emotional snapshot in the picture. And then it can also change the text to display the emotion that they're given. So you take this weighty language that's not inaccessible. I think it's a really great way to describe it. It's weighty language. And then you add in that visual component of when it's emotional and they're backing down of something in the scene, the text gets smaller. And when it's big, when it's Zeus and his big angry emotions, when he figures out what's going on, it takes up the whole page. His one bubble of one sentence is huge and it's thick penciling, and we get that visual representation. And I think that helps the words not be so weighty, because I actually thought a few times reading this, if this was just text, I would not be reading this. The other thing I noticed just in the writing, we're talking about like pacing and style, I really appreciated because the whole underlying themes in this is really around the female represented gods, or noticing the inequities for mortals in terms of how women are treated throughout these times of history. And actually some very powerful imagery when they're talking about it. And we'll talk about the art, but sometimes you have the panel and behind the panel is like it's over a wallpaper telling the story of women oppression over time, was very powerful. The red figures of the women being beaten, murdered, locked up, just all of that. To the writing extent, the female represented gods talk with the same weight as the male representing gods. And that is so powerful when you're talking about a group of female representing gods wanting to create a society without the patriarchy. The fact that they are talking as equals is very, very important, because it could have just continued that they were lesser than in how the language was written. And it's not. It's very purposefully, we talk the same, we are the same. We're going to do something about it.
And that's part of those themes that go into it, right? That's part of the mortal world mirroring the world of the gods, right? Because the male, Zeus isn't used to that, but something needs to change. And I think we can kind of get into it a little more with that writing. And part of the story is, you mentioned the depiction of those inequities. It goes way beyond inequities, like within, and I was just looking through it. It's literally 4 pages. The first 4 pages of this book, where it's setting the table of this book, is about the horrors and tortures that women face in society from beyond. And they very purposefully chose situations and depictions of art that could exist both in 3000 BC and today. And it is just brutal. Like, in the first 4 pages of this book, like, you're either, I don't want to read this, or you're like, oh, there's doing something important here and I need to pay attention.
As a woman, it was really hard to stomach those first few pages. I almost didn't go past it. I had to actually put it down and walk away. It was like, do I have the wherewithal within myself to see where it's going? Because it was pretty triggering, those images in the first handful of pages. It was really, really tough. What do you think about that, Joan?
I have a lower tolerance for that because of my career field. Those are stories I hear, in working with my clients over time. But I felt the bigness of it. I almost felt like Hera, who said, I see it over 1,000 years. I have 1,000 eyes. I see it all, the big picture. I took it as powerful in this big quest journey journey they have before them to complete it. So I was excited to go beyond that because I knew there'd be a resolution.
I love that you brought in that quote because that's exactly what I was talking about with the writing. Like, I've seen it over 1,000 years with 1,000 eyes, and she's standing there in peacock feathers that, are reminiscent of eyes. It's just everything works so perfectly together.
Although, Rob, I'm curious why you think Hera stepped back from the process. I mean, I get it, but I questioned that. That was the only lasting question I had about the whole book.
Why Hera stepped back from...
And
that's not something I said. You mean in the book, why she stepped back from the process. That is a... Oh, gosh.
I mean, we can come back to it. That's...
Okay, we're going to think about that as we go into our own...
I have an immediate answer if I've...
Okay.
Because I did read it quickly, admittedly, kind of last minute, but I did get tangent. I finally got my hoopla working with the Mendocino County Library. So, got all that situated.
Look at that, Joan. We were the change we wanted to see in the world.
Everybody's
Actually, it was Pumpkin Fest, but that helps too. Having read it last minute, my thoughts on that, my guess of that is the inability to hide it from Zeus, right? Because at the end of the book, and I guess we should always say spoilers, right? Like if you haven't read the book, you should have read it before this episode. I think there's a hint for me of not being able to hide it from Zeus. That was her way to support the movement.
Okay, Going off of what you said and having some time to kind of put it in context, I will come at it from another angle. I think it's because nothing has truly changed. And if it was like, oh, yeah, we have these races, we're going to stand up and now women are immortal and they're super powerful. It's like, well, that's not how it really is. And that's not the struggle that people have to deal with in their real lives and going on into the future. Her backing away and being kind of like, well, that classic, the husband made a decision and now I have to back it up, or now I don't get to do what I want, is something that the people in the mortal world and the people reading this book still have experienced and see every day. So I think that drives home yes, this is a fantasy story, but really this is art imitating life. And if we had a big happy ending and something largely changed and we saved feminism forever, then it loses some of that weight.
You said it.
I just come back to how she also, it circles back around almost like a redemption arc, but not quite a redemption arc. How when everything's falling apart, she helps assist what eventually leads to Diana being created because she took that step back. And now, no, you're right. Nothing has actually changed because it's all under darkness. It's all under hiding, and it's hiding from the gods. Now the gods know about it. Something was done about it. And now here's a way to keep it going, almost like a redemption arc. I find it very, very interesting taking that route.
Mm-hmm. She knew she would be a piece of the puzzle later on, so she stepped back initially.
Yeah, I see a little bit of that. And then by her not having it on her mind or taking action on it earlier, kept Zeus from knowing about it a lot sooner than he might have.
You have notes in here, Joan, about the portrayal of toxic masculinity in the dialogue here. For me, I definitely see it, maybe more in the art, but I mean, when we're introduced to Zeus and he's just this humongous figure and just the way he's sitting has kind of like hips forward, just, sheet draped over his junk with all the confidence in the world. I'm like, oh, this freaking guy. But what were you talking about in the dialogue and the stuff with Zeus and his sons?
I don't have examples because I didn't pull them out, but he sends the two sons that I recall, and I don't remember the names. That's not I can't ever remember names of anything. But he sends his one son, the powerful guy, to like knock them all down and kill them all and challenge them. And that's that,
Hercules.
Her brute strength.
Yep.
And then you have the one that's the whiny defensive one, like, why are you doing this? I want it. And that's... And it's not mocking at all, but we see those personalities in culture today of men who aren't confronting their own contribution to this bigger picture. And so I liked that. Talk about the psychology background of it. I see intergenerational trauma here. I see toxic masculinity. I see just this ancestry that then Wonder Woman has to deal with and take into the world. So
like Hercules cannot fathom that women have power. And he steps into that land just assuming he has the strength, the wit, and the power to unend them all. And he is just shocked when they flat out slaughter him.
How dare you want to vote?
Even the way they, pretty gruesome here, even the way the shock on his face when they carry his head, right? It just portrays all the way through that toxic masculinity. He cannot fathom that they would be able to best him.
Mm-hmm. And there's the art supporting the words, right? This is why this medium is perfect.
Let's talk about the art a little bit. I think we all have some very...
Let's talk about the art a lot.
Okay. Well, let's talk about the art. All of us have some very interesting notes about the art, and we've hinted at it a little bit already in our discussion. But let's start with you, Joan, since you are our lovely guest, about your thoughts on the art.
For sure. I am a novice when it comes to graphic novels, and I like them a little more simple. There was too much to attend to for me in these, and I read it twice, and I'm still not sure how that plays out for me. I almost want it to be audiobook and then a picture book separate.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just emotionally overwhelming, maybe, and that's why I said it's too busy for me, because I can't make sense of it all together. And I can talk about specific images that made an impact, but I want to hear what you both think first about, in general, art.
Well, I read it in a digital format. I was constantly toggling my iPad from horizontal to vertical view because of the way the art's laid out. So what that was telling me is there are some beautiful 2-page spreads that are just glorious. And it takes all 2 pages to show you everything at once. And your eye has to follow the natural sequence of what's happening in the scene. And then there were some that were your typical panels. And then there were some that were all over the place, where it's layers, where the comic book panel is forefront and behind it are some things. That constant change was pretty jarring to me, combined with my troubles with the subject area. You know, I've been in male dominated careers my entire life. So there was a lot of like trigger for me in this, and the artwork made it more overwhelming, but that also makes it super beautiful because I don't read as many comic books as Rob. So if we had a hierarchy of comic book readers, it would be Rob, me, then you, I think
absolutely
is a general assumption here. I love the artwork. I had, at the times I stopped, I was loving the digital technology, zooming in to actually see what's behind it and zooming in going, oh, look at this, this hint. And in particular, some of those scenes where there's outlines of women's faces to depict where the story's coming from, where the intention's coming from, who can see what. I mean, there's just so much going on in this book. I wish I would have read it in smaller chunks to be able to appreciate it fully, right?
Because I can see that the binge
is beautiful.
Is a lot.
Yes.
Yeah.
I do not recommend binging it.
I think, tell me if I'm wrong, you when you were kind of talking about, there's definitely parts in this book where they do silhouettes and outlines of women, or they purposefully have like the back turned and stuff like that. And I think that's a very purposeful decision to be like, this could be you. This could be someone you know,
yep.
Right? It's that point of reference character. And it's always a point of reference character when something horrific is happening. They purposefully don't put a face on that tragedy because that could be any one of us.
Correct.
Right. That could be any woman.
The use of silhouettes and shadows in that case is what makes it very powerful.
I love the art in this book. I think it's absolutely phenomenal, particularly the representations of the gods. When the gods are in Olympus, they are larger than life. They are beautiful. They are made of, some gods and goddesses are made of nature. They're made of birds and feathers and starlight. Some are made of like cosmic ideas of the universe and stars and nebulas. And some are, have these overtones of animals or symbolic representations with antlers and those kinds of things. And then when the gods are in the real world, and this is something that blew me away because it's not how it's traditionally done in comic books. Usually it'd be like, okay, well, here's, Zeus in Olympus. And then when he comes down to be on Earth, he looks the same. And everybody's like, oh my gosh, that's a god. The way they do it in this book is, the idea is like, how does a god represent in the mortal world? You might hear something on the wind and then she'll like turn around and see a stag, but she gets the idea. And then the panel zooms out, and over the shoulder, made up of branches in front of the moonlit sky, you see an outline of the face of the goddess that you saw in Olympus. The shadows on the ground will give some sort of symbolic representation of that god, which you have been primed for by seeing the amazing art before when they were it's absolutely brilliant to think that some of these incredible double page spreads are actually foreshadowing for a very small moment later in the book when a character is having like a realization of what it means to be in a world of these gods. And what Joan notices is like just absolutely busy and hard to look at. I see the artist and I see that person at their drafting table with the huge paper and their pencils lovingly pouring hours and hours and hours into this masterpiece that when you read it takes 6 seconds to turn the page, but is lasting. Like, I'll never forget the art in this book, and I'll keep going back to it because of the craft of it and like the loving attention that was made to honestly absolutely reinvent these characters. Like, you go back to a Wonder Woman story from the 90s or the 80s or whatever, and there might be representations of these goddesses. They don't look anything like this, right? There's nothing. Just kind of to go on, like, to see something like this based on, you say like, oh, well, Rob's read a lot of comic books. I have, and I've read a lot of like older comic books from 20, 30, 40 years ago. In a Spider-Man newspaper comic strip, right? The only way you could tell the difference between a Betty Brant and a Gwen Stacy is one of them, their hair was black, and the other, their hair was yellow. Because the artists, there were shortcuts that they would do, right? Like J. Jonah Jameson has a big square flat top, so you know it's him. And Harry Osborn has a weird like stripes in his hair, so you know that's him. But otherwise, everybody looks the same. So when I look at a comic book and I say like, oh, well, how's the art on this book? Is it successful? It's like, are the faces actually different? Do people have different heights and body types and sizes and those kinds of things? It's like, this goes way beyond that kind of bar of success as far as comic book art goes. This goes through like, yeah, this is an award-winning book that, you know, you want to look at, right? It's beautiful. I could take some of these panels or some of these pages, and if it was like a poster or like a wallpaper for my computer screen or whatever, I would absolutely put them up because I think they're just so impactful and something special that like we're not seeing.
Absolutely. There is artistry in it, I can acknowledge, and that's very true.
I'll also say it really helps paint the picture of this is before Wonder Woman, and there is a separation between God and mortal. And that by painting the representations of each tribe in the manner that it does really helps to distinguish when the mortals then get to become involved. They don't automatically get all these, they don't get the garb, they don't get the manifestations of what they look like as gods. So I thought that was also really helpful in what we know is the future. And the future is what it looks like with Diana and the mortals, the Amazons.
I think I see what you're saying. Does that mesh with your second point here on the notes, Joan? That there's a loss of imagery near the end of the book, that the art changes in Act 5.
It becomes more user-friendly to my eyes, at least near the end. I was speaking to, I'm going to hold it up because I have the copy of the book. There's the vases picture at the beginning, and then there's the Well of the Lost at the end that has a similar imagery that we can't wait, where where all their souls go.
Mm-hmm.
And then my point of that was you see again just how big, how over and far-reaching this story is. It reminds me of, there's an exhibit at the U.S. Holocaust Museum called The Tower of Faces. You walk over a sky bridge and there's pictures and pictures of families up the wall. And that instantly brought to my mind these panels. You just see the historical and long-term implications.
And it shows a style, right? It shows a style of like, this is how we portray those big events and these things that are so cosmic that they have to take up more room and they're just floating out in this like fourth dimension that we can't comprehend. So one of the things that I thought we were kind of talking about or that I'll bring up now is the change in art style at the end. Like, one of the things that you can do if you're using like the digital version is like you can get the layout, like you can skip to pages. And if you look at the pages from the last act of the book and then scroll up, you know, to maybe Act 2 or Act 3, the art is completely different. Where at the end, when we're seeing the crafting of Wonder Woman, it looks like a traditional DC comic. Right. And I think that's very purposeful because now we are set to, now that's what came before. That's the story of how we got here. And here looks very familiar and very comfortable.
Yet it visually calms down, right? Mm-hmm. You have the oppression, recognition at the beginning, and the introduction of who the gods are and the goddesses are. You get the building of the initial Amazons, and then you get the ending of them, which by the way, I think is one of the most powerful points in the writing, is that the female gods are holding themselves accountable to what's right on a much stronger level than the male gods are. They are duty, they are tradition, they are legacy. They admit to creating these cultures, these women-only cultures in the dark that allows it to come to the light. So So then there's also a lightness in the art that shifts, right? It's continuous. It's more than what you're saying, the beginning to end. It as it develops, and then you get the big, basically mass death kind of deal going on, and then the rebirth. And that's where it turns into what we know more of 20th century, 21st century comic books.
Did that turn, when you're talking about, like, did you feel that turn, that feeling of, oh my God, I was doing something and now I just got caught by dad? I felt that. Like, that was so visceral to me. Like, when Zeus, like, finds out what they were doing, and what's his face, Apollo or whatever, like, tattles on him and lets him know what they were doing, and then he just flips out, and it's like, oh God, dad's home. Like, I mean, I can't speak for Joan, but it might hit women a little bit differently. It's a very sorrowful failure. For me, it was another point that I had to slow down and like put the book down for a minute, because it's like the patriarchy is going to win no matter what we do. So I didn't get that like, oh, I'm in trouble. I got, oh boy, how are we going to go from here? How is Wonder Woman going to come out of this? Because it's all ending now. No matter what, the patriarchy, the gods are making sure that it's ending. And this is where I appreciated the women god, the female gods more, is that they stood up to it and said, yep, this is what we did. This is why we did it. We understand we did it under the cloak of darkness, and we're here to correct it. Like, they own up to it. So I felt less of that trouble and more of that, we've proven our point, why we are struggling with what we're struggling with, and why we did what we did, and we will own up to it. It was powerful and sorrowful at the same time.
I agree. And then there's the aspect of the compromise. So what do we do from here to salvage it? We will survive. We'll piece it together. What's the punishment? How do we move forward?
Talk about the childbirth note that you have here, Joan.
Oh, absolutely. Anything that represents real childbirth is wonderful. So to see it depicted like that, and the hardships as one of the hardships that women go through in life, was great, especially politically in society. So the imagery was great.
Does it happen more than once? Remind me.
Just once. Same baby, but there's the second page had the baby with the umbilical cord, and then there was the birth story. You have to give it away because it's a girl.
It's a girl, and
giving away of your child. And so that theme, especially today politically, it's not a political podcast, but it hits on real themes in real life.
Comic books are political. Comic books have always been political. Comic books were invented as a medium of war propaganda to defend the decisions of World War II and politicians at the time. Comic books had a huge response in eras like Vietnam and what that meant. Comic books consistently try to push different agendas and represent underrepresented people. I think there's great times where they do it in allegory, and sometimes they just do it literally. But don't let somebody tell you, oh, these comic books are so woke, or I don't like politics in my comic book. That's what comic books are. Comic books are a window to the world we are looking at, and they have always and will always be political.
And this one absolutely is.
Mm-hmm. I'm actually surprised it won awards, because I could see a comic book like this having we talk about a backlash because of the front lash that it creates. So we've talked about themes and character development already in our conversation. These were our next topics organically within our plans today. Definitely, women empowerment, the patriarchy, consequences. I like your comment here, Rob. Goddesses having to grapple with the consequences of decisions they've made, even though they feel they are righteous in doing so on and so forth. Is there anything else before we go to final thoughts that we want to bring up about this?
I will say I need a spin-off comic for each of these tribes and what adventures they're having on their part of the island where they live. I think it'd be brilliant.
100% agree with you. I think it would be amazing. And it would be cool to see more of that art as they develop after the big to-do, and then the reinventing of who they are would be really cool. Or just more origin stories of what they did in between what happens in this book.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
What about you, Rob? You have anything else?
I mean, no, I think you nailed it. It's just, there's just this weight to it of the, like, we did something, we did it for the right reasons. We thought we were starting a revolution, and we got smacked back down into the dirt. It's a relatable story, because not all of our stories and not all of the things that we try to do succeed.
Very good. Well, let's get to final thoughts. What are your final thoughts about this comic book?
Yes, for me, this is a 11 out of 10. This is a must buy. This is not only a buy, but this is a buy in multiple formats. I think you can read this book online, the experience you had, Annalise, where you can pan and zoom and go back and, you know, really look at the details in that way. But it's also a beautiful hardcover book of art that you can have out, or you can have on your shelf where you have like your collection of favorite things, you know, in that format that Joan has. The very least, being as, you know, this book has so many accolades and has won awards and will continue to be talked about, at the very least, it's a borrow from the library in either format. And just get this if you want to see where, I mean, this is a modern comic book. This comic book's probably a year old. Like, this is the cutting edge of storytelling in this medium.
I appreciate that a lot, and appreciate that they did this instead of just telling us another Wonder Woman origin story. What do you got, Joan?
I agree. I would own it for my shelf. I have season 8 Buffy omnibuses, the 3 of them.
Yeah.
This one goes right up there with the feminist empowerment stories that I would have. I also find it's refreshing in that there are other comic books that are memoir style. So George Takei told his story of Japanese internment camps in graphic novel form. There are other ones that do it. You all did season 1, a one shot on Moss, however we say it.
Mouse.
So those kinds of stories take a complicated emotional story, put it in a different format. It reaches more people. It's what we need.
Do you think, and I know you've got a list of suggestions here, is this the direction to go with the show? And is this the direction to go with book club? Books like Mouse, books like They Call This Enemy, those kinds of things.
I mean, I'm going to talk in my nerdiest thing I did this week, but I think a range. I want a classic comic book. I want a comic book memoir. I want a range for people. I want origin stories. I want for novi like me, and for readers like you, I want all of it.
Beautiful. Rush right out in a buying frenzy.
And I will say, for my final thoughts, I caution our listeners, and this is possible, that you may have a friend who doesn't know much or anything about Wonder Woman. I would not recommend this first. You kind of have to know a little bit about Wonder Woman and where she comes from and why in order to take this one in. If you have a novice friend who actually really doesn't know anything except that Wonder Woman was a series in the 70s, or maybe has watched the recent movies, maybe read an origin story of Wonder Woman before you get to this book, because I don't know that it works if you don't understand those origins, or it will work if you are a big fan of Greek mythology, and this is another version of Greek mythology. I'm not big on Greek mythology. I am admittedly very uneducated when it comes to it. Instead of Greek mythology in high school, I took journalism. So I am not that up on who these characters are. I know them because of pop culture, but I do know Wonder Woman. So I was prepared to understand that this was about gods. That's what ran through my mind as I read it. Like, I know where this is going to, and that helped me stick in it when it got really hard to read. It may not be the case for someone who doesn't know where it's leading. So
I wonder then, there's two sides of a coin. Does having Wonder Woman in the title do this book a disservice? Because it's not really about Wonder Woman. It's a telling of a Greek myth using, it's a story using the characters of these Greek myths through the lens of like the DC universe tangentially. So to have someone say like, oh, this is a Wonder Woman origin book, and it's not what it says on the tin. That's not what you get. Although, if it just was called Historia the Amazons, would it have gotten as many eyeballs? I don't think it does a disservice by having it Wonder Woman in the title. It could be misleading for those who don't know, because there is a particular reason why the Amazons exist. And this, I don't know that we ever really get those reasons in the Wonder Woman origin stories. Only like women were oppressed, so therefore the Amazons exist. Like, we don't really get this depth into the story, and it's powerful because of it. For me, it's like Rogue One, right? Rogue One gets a little bit deeper. Exactly. It gets deeper into how we get to episode 4, right? Episode 4 doesn't exist without the story that happens in Rogue One. And it's a tragedy because nobody survives. That's a little bit of what this Historia gives us. There you go. You fixed it. It should have been called Historia, a Wonder Woman
Rogue
story.
One.
No.
JK.
The Rogue Amazons.
Intern Joan, what's the nerdiest thing you did this week?
Well, we know that I like to read. I was excited about this book club. Yesterday, I finished my 134th book this year.
Oh,
What?
I read
that's
a
a
lot.
lot of books.
It's a lot of books. I had a lengthy commute. I anticipate I will read less books next year. But yes, that is maybe the nerdiest
It's like
thing
3
I did
books
this
a week.
It is indeed.
Listen, Intern Joan has a wonderful Instagram account called What is Joan Reading? And you should see these stacks of books that Joan gets from the library like once a week. And I say this to you constantly that I wish I could read as fast as you read, because I'm lucky if I get through 12 books a year. That's once a month, but you get through 12 in a month.
Dr. Joan reads books like I paint miniatures.
Even more rapid than you paint miniatures, but yes. What was book 134? Would you share with us?
What did I finish? It's called The Blackbird Oracle by Deborah Harkness. She is a USC history professor and writes a trilogy. It's a trilogy. That was the 4th one, so no longer a trilogy, but about a witch and a vampire couple who do magical things.
Ooh,
That sounds actually really great.
yeah, sounds sexy.
No, it's not spicy, is what they call it in the book world.
It's not spicy.
It's
no
not spicy.
spice.
I see. Okay. Listen, we got time, and you read 1 million books. What is up with the dragon book? I keep hearing like high fantasy dragon books are now spicy books. Like that's the new romance. The new spice is people and dragons.
I can't do it. They're too young adult, soap opera-y. I don't know. I can't read them.
Melodramatic.
Yeah, I can't read them. There's not a lot of plot or character drive. There's spice and fight and dragons. There's not anything else.
All right, not a recommend. Got it.
Not a recommend.
How about you, Rob? What's the nerdiest thing you did this week?
So, nerdiest thing I did this week, we talked about how it's the fall season, but every Halloween, we have a tradition around that holiday to play the board game Castle Ravenloft. And I'm sure we've talked about this before in the show, but if you're new, Castle Ravenloft is a Dungeons and Dragons board game. It's a dungeon crawler. It comes with a bunch of monster miniatures and hero miniatures, and it has a very straightforward, simple mechanic as far as a way to play Dungeons and Dragons. It's very similar to the format that was 4th edition Dungeons and Dragons. It's like card based and very much like you just go through the steps as far as like you can move. If you move to the edge, put another tile. A monster shows up. Then you can attack. Then the monster goes. Like it's very formulaic that way, but depending on who you have and stuff, there's strategy. It's a fun dungeon crawler game, but I love this game so much when it came out, gosh, probably 10 years or more ago, that I went all out. Of course, I painted up all the minis and I created a 3D board for it. So if you imagine the way the dungeon crawler works is as you explore the dungeon, you put down tiles, and in the box they're like cardboard puzzle pieces that you've seen, I don't know what, 3x3 inch probably, or 4x4.
Give or take, because some of the tiles are longer than others.
Actually, I know they're 4x4 because I printed them. They're 4x4 tiles that are just like cardboard, and they like interlock like puzzle pieces. So I took all of those pieces, and I think it's funny because I think there's 52 of them, which really kind of makes me think about the game design and like cards and stuff. But anyway, there's 52 of them. I laid them all out, and then I 3D printed 4-inch by 4-inch tiles in plastic, like 3D dungeons, to match each different card. So as we pull the cards, we go over to the box and grab the 3D representation. So on the table, we're making a dungeon for our miniatures to run around in and stuff.
Rob is underplaying it. If you pull a card and it's got like a pile of skeleton bones and one-dimensional skeleton bones and a crypt, when you pull that tile that's been printed and painted, it's got the same pile of bones and the same crypt. If you pull a card that's got walls that are crypts, you pull the tile that Rob printed and painted, and it's a crypt with a skeleton laying inside. Like, it is so detailed and gorgeous. It makes the game so much more interactive and fun.
Oh, thank you. That was that weekend right before Halloween, and we played that game. Just the 3 of us this year. We didn't round out the entire 5-man band. But we beat him. We beat that smelly vampire. We got him.
We got Strahd.
Yep. And you don't every year. Sometimes you lose that game. And then that's it. That just sets the tone for the whole rest of the year. You better hope you have a nice Christmas, because you're probably not gonna. Your life is ruined.
You're getting cold if you don't beat Strahd.
But it was fun. This year we fought the Frankenstein, the big, so, like part 1, you draw a random guardian monster to fight. This year it was the big flesh golem Frankenstein one that Maria actually painted up. It's one of my favorite. It is my favorite mini in that box is the Frankenstein flesh golem. So we beat him, and then we went on and just slayed the crap out of Strahd.
Which is crazy because what it makes the third year in the row. I think
we've gotten better. I think we've kind of figured out like, hey, and you know what I think the real trick was is to grab all those items, because it's like the holy water and the wooden stake. It must-haves.
Yes. Last year was really close. We were down to, I think the last 2 years, it was down to like the final roll. And I remember Andrew like just nailing that final roll a couple of years ago. And then last year he kept regenerating and we kept going like, there's no way. And then someone would pull a card or a weapon or something right on time. It was pretty amazing.
What I remember was crazy about the last year that you played was last year, right?
Yeah.
Was one of us was down. And by the rules, if it comes to your turn and you can't be healed, the game is over. So we had to slay him on the person's turn right before yours, and we got it. So talk about.
I think Maria was down. Maria's character was down, and it was she went down on her turn. So each of us had a turn to try to finish it before it came back to her and ended the game.
And that was it, because we knew like we have to do 6 more damage in these next 3 turns or whatever it was. Yeah, it's a fun game. It's especially fun with friends. What's the nerdiest thing you did this week, Annalise?
The nerdiest thing I did this week is continue my year of Stephen King. And it's just the thing. It launched by my 24 for 2024. I am more immersed in stuff than I have been in years. Usually I read whatever new book is out. One thing that's been out for a while is the streaming series, Mr. Mercedes, which is based off of what I call the Bill Hodges trilogy, which is a series of 3 books with the character Bill Hodges in it. He's a retired detective who has that one case that nags on him because he never solved it. And it's this mass murder case and so on and so forth. And it spans these 3 books that then creates the character Holly that's now been in 3 other books and talks about making a movie or series based around her. She's a really great character. The last book that featured Holly was called Holly. It's a really great series, and I always struggle with watching things based off of Stephen King books because it is now a pop culture joke or phenomenon how bad the adaptations can be or how great they can be. And the ones that are really, really great, many people just won't know that it's Stephen King, right? Stand By Me. Lots of people are surprised to find out that's a Stephen King story. Shawshank Redemption. Yep, exactly. Now, then you have really great ones that like The Green Mile and Misery are also really great adaptations. So I was worried because I like Mr. Mercedes and that trilogy so much, that trilogy of books so much. I was really worried that they were going to ruin it with the show. It is fantastic. It is very close to the book. There are some things that, they made a television series about it, so they go on some tangents that aren't in the book, but the tangents don't ruin the storyline, and it is so good. It reminds me of what it felt like watching the first season of Dexter after having read the book, because season 1 of Dexter, I think it's Darkly Dreaming Dexter is the name of the book. They are parallel until the very end. It's that first season is so good. And this first season of Mr. Mercedes, I'm really into it. I was actually up to like 11:30 last night, which is not common for me anymore, but I was like on episode 4 or 5 and I'm binging it. I'm loving it. And actually, when we're done today, I'm going to put it on while I'm folding laundry and keep watching it. But Mr. Mercedes, it's on the Peacock app. It's real good King horror mixed in with detective stuff, mixed in with really modernized writing. But I'm really impressed with it as an adaptation.
Very cool. Now, you said earlier you would now recommend it for me. Who would you recommend it for?
Well, because you struggle with the blood and gore stuff and the initial thing that happens. It's in the premise. I'm not going to give anything away here. Mr. Mercedes calls himself that because he steals a Mercedes and mows down a crowd of people who are in line for a job fair. And it's very bloody and very gross.
That's terrible.
It's very terrifying. What I will say is the character's name is Brady Hatsfield. The guy they got to play Brady is phenomenal. Like, he is scary and creepy and deranged like the dude in the book. You know who he is. Like, it starts with knowing who he is. It's not a whodunit mystery. You know who he is and you know what's wrong with him, and you see him planning his next things, and he's antagonizing this retired detective by sending him letters and stuff. And yeah, it's really good. So if you take away that super bloody gore part, if you can get past that part, the rest of it's really phenomenal. It's like psychological thriller. Are they going to get to him in time before he does the next thing kind of deal? And then, redemption arc of the retired detective who's drinking too much and can't handle that he let that one get away kind of thing. I think you would enjoy the rest of it. if you can get past that part and know that there are some like flashback sequences throughout the show of that event. So anyone who's a fan of scary horror-esque detective combination, psychological thriller combination, I think it's well worth it.
Yeah, sounds terrible, but I'm glad you're enjoying it.
Yes, terrible for those who don't like horror.
Well, I mean, it's especially terrible for me because like that happened at my college. A kid murdered a bunch of people with his car on Halloween, and that was something that affected our community and was pretty close. So
yeah, it's bad. It's definitely realistic. I mean, it's definitely a thing that's still happening now. So it is hard to stomach. And I think it might have been harder for me if I didn't know it was coming. Like I knew it was coming. It's the opening series sequence of the book.
Right. I keep thinking, do you know, did the Lock and Key show continue and go all the way through the story?
I actually don't know. I didn't keep watching it because I wasn't reading it. I want to read before I watch. So
okay. Cool. It's so well liked and so lauded. I'm like, maybe now that I know what happens, maybe probably not.
Well,
I got other things
from
to
what
do.
I remember, as deep as I read it, it doesn't stay that gory. Don't take my word for it. I can go back and look. I've read the first couple of them, and that's it. So
there's plenty of other things to do with my time.
It's the most nerdiest time of the year. It's time for the Nerd Gift Giving Guide. Holiday gift suggestions for all the nerds on your list. Tune in and get ready for the holiday season with your nerd best friends. Reminder on our call to action, hit that subscribe or follow button on your device and spread the word with those sweet 5-star ratings. Connect with us on social media at Nerd Best Friends or send us a message at podcast@nerdbestfriends.com. Let's grow our nerd family and keep the geeky fun going strong. And don't forget, bonus episodes on the off weeks for our Patreon subscribers. So find us patreon.com/nerdbestfriends and get that extra crispy nerdy content.
Thank you for listening, and thank you, Intern Joan, for joining us this episode.
MVP. So it's the Burt Club. We're on a roll this morning. Talking trash. Yeah, go on. The World's End. Hey, nerds.
Hey, nerds. Can we be serious?